In this video, we're going to be going from A to Z into how you can automate your entire business. It's not theoretical, it's practical. We're going to be building out this whole system together. And by the end of this video, you should be on track to making a 5x return on your investment. Don't just take my word for that though. Take a look at this. This is just one study that says marketing automation provides an ROI of $5.44 for every dollar spent. The next model also says the exact same thing. I'm assuming these probably reference the same study. The next article suggests that the average marketing automation exceeds 500%. And you got to think this is the average, which means that literally 50% of people out there got less than this. So if you're in the top 10% of people, you should be getting probably 1,000x ROI. And I'm going to be telling you guys exactly how to become in the top 10%. I've invested personally $2 million into building a system, and everything I've learned along the way, all the mistakes I've made, I'm going to pack into, or as much as I can, into this video so that you guys can take those lessons, apply it to your own business, circumvent my mistakes so that you can see success really, really quickly. Now, there's a couple things that people struggle with when it comes to automation. First of all, 54% of people have trouble mapping out complex processes. No problem, done. In this video, we're going to be doing this together, so you don't even have to worry about that. 39% of people have no access to external data. That's not going to be a problem either. 37% struggle with implementation costs. The total of this whole thing, everything I'm talking about today, you can get done for approximately $120 USD. It's going to be 2 software applications. Both come with free trials. So even if you want to build this out with me step by step, you're not going to pay a dime until you actually see very high value from what we're building out together. And the last thing here is 24% lack integration, which absolutely sucks. I've been there before in the past when I first started my businesses long time ago, and I only choose software that has integration into tens of thousands of other applications. So this is never going to be a problem. This is one of the biggest barriers that people pigeonhole themselves into by choosing the wrong software. Now, let's just break down practically what this looks like. This is a service-based business, right? Specifically a service-based business. Typically, they all have the same style or process, right? And you can really break it down into 2 fundamental parts. Part number 1 is that every service-based business has some sort of sales process. And typically speaking, all of these sales processes kind of act more or less the same way. I mean, obviously there's going to be slight nuances, slight differences, but more or less most of the sales processes are the same. Like, you're going to have to find leads from somewhere, maybe SEO or Google Ads or Bark or social media. You're going to drive them to a website. They're going to become a new lead because they inquired on your website. You're going to jump on a sales call, have some follow-up meetings with them. And then if they decide to move forward, you're going to have to get them to sign a contract and pay you. So that's the first part, is sales. And then the second part here is fulfillment or customer automation. So once that person becomes a paying customer instead of a lead, then you actually have to fulfill the services to the person. And luckily, most of this stuff can be automated as well. However, this is less standardized. It will vary depending on the business. And I can give you some best use cases and best practices that you can go off and implement into your own business. And we'll be building this out together in this video, not just theoretically, but also like practically step by step, module by module. What that looks like is once they've paid and signed, then you have to probably onboard them, get more information to do your job successfully. And then you might have to set up a project management system so that you can delegate responsibilities to people on your team so that, you know, they're actually doing their job. You can track it, make sure that everything's going according to plan, nothing's swept under the rug. And then maybe assign specific team members, send out notifications, just reminding people to actually do their jobs, and reminding clients to maybe, you know, do things like the onboarding if they haven't done so already. And then once that's done, you render the service, the contract's complete, maybe some revisions take place, and then you have reviews after that, and then referrals back into becoming a repeat customer or referring you to their friends and their family. So in a nutshell, this is what business automation looks like, and we're going to be going through, practically speaking, this whole thing in this one video. And how we're going to do that is using 2 softwares. The first one is Go High Level. Okay, so this software in a nutshell is like a sales and marketing CRM. It replaces like the need for 15 other applications. So in the past, and what I see a lot of people do is they'll have like one software for their CRM, another for maybe a website builder, another for forms, another for email marketing. And it's just messy because you're like trying to integrate dozens and dozens of applications together. The thing that I like about Go High Level is the automation builder is world class. I think it's one of the best in the world. I absolutely love it. And the cool thing is yeah, they like practically speaking, they might not have the best web builder. They might not have the best, of every single class, because when you're a master, or when you do everything, you're not a master in all categories, right? But consolidating it under one platform and also having the ability to automate every single facet of your business is an absolute game changer. This is $97 a month for their starter plan. They do have an unlimited plan, but unless you're a marketing agency that wants to white label their software and sell it to your customers, this is going to be plenty for the duration of you using their software. And then lastly, the only other software that we're going to be using is make.com. This is about $10 a month. And this is what allows you to integrate Go High Level into tens of thousands of other applications. Practically speaking, here we can go to solutions and where is it? Okay, I can't seem to, let's just do /integrations. And we'll take a look and see what integrations they have. So you could connect, for example, Go High Level into LinkedIn or Webflow or HubSpot, Typeform, Canva, Gmail, Google Drive, Airtable, Pinterest, Slack, and the list goes on for like another 10,000 applications. So you are never going to be bottlenecked into one software, because even if something like Go High Level didn't have the certain functionality that you needed, all you have to do is connect it in a two-way fashion, meaning data can be sent out of Go High Level and into Go High Level. So you can send data to make.com, connect it into whatever you want, and then send that data right back into Go High Level itself. Now, the blueprints that I'm making today with you are going to be free in the description. However, if you guys want the absolute maximum out of this, I have spent months, or well, precisely probably like 7 years, to be honest, but then 2 months like consolidating and making it perfect so that I could duplicate it for other people. So I've spent about 7 years building out this snapshot. It's free in the description as well, but you do need a membership with Go High Level. So you just sign up through my affiliate link. If you already are part, or if you already are using Go High Level, then I'm going to be releasing a community in January 2025, and you can find the blueprints in there if you do decide to get them. And lastly, if you guys look at this and you're like, this seems way too complicated and I just want something easy, you can inquire with my agency here, automatable.co. And what we do is we act as fractional CTOs. We go into people's businesses, we find areas that they could optimize, and then we essentially just automate every single thing to increase your profitability and also just save a ton of time so you can focus on higher leverage activities that are going to make you more money. So with that being said, let's dive into it right now. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to want to do is sign up for Go High Level. You can do it on their website. I highly recommend signing up through my snapshot, because that way I'll send over all the blueprints that I spent 7 years building. It does not cost you anything extra, and you get a free trial in either instance. Now, just keep in mind with Go High Level, I have an entire course. I'll link up to the top here. I'm not going to be going through how to use Go High Level. I'm going to assume that you have some basic understanding of it, but we'll be breaking down every step that I do step by step. So you should be able to easily understand what's going on. Inside Go High Level, all we have to do is create a sub account for you. Now, essentially, you can just think about this as you're building an account within Go High Level. Practically speaking, what happens is that Go High Level is catering also to marketing agencies. Those marketing agencies have the option to white label Go High Level and then sell it to their the businesses that they're servicing. And in your case, if you're a landscaper, you're not servicing other businesses, you just need an account for yourself. So you can go ahead and add a sub account just for your personal company. This is a one-time thing. Once you get this done, you're not going to have to do it again. So we're going to go ahead and we're just going to add, random test data in here just to kind of set up. So we're going to do test2 at gmail.com. And this all looks good to me. I'm just going to fill this out as quickly as possible. Of course, you're probably going to want to put in your actual information here, but just for me, I'm just going to delete this account afterwards. Okay, sounds good. So I've saved this, and now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to enter into this account here. So in order to enter into the account, I'm just going to switch to the sub account here. And now we're in a blank Go High Level account, okay? So the first thing that we wanna do is we wanna take a look and see, how are we going to automate new leads coming in, right? And essentially, this video is not about how to get leads on SEO, Google Ads, or Bark, or whatever. This lead is how we can automate these automate the leads that come in once we've acquired them. So chances are you have a particular website, right? Let's take this website, for example. Here's mine. You have a website, you're getting leads here. And when somebody fills in their first name, last name, email, phone number, and so on and so forth, your goal is to call that person as quickly as possible, because if you call that person within 60 seconds, you increase your conversion rate by up to 391%. That's 4 times the amount of sales. I don't know anything else in business that you can get 4 times the amount of sales by doing like a quick 5-minute tweak, right? It's just almost unheard of. So that's the first thing we're going to build out, is making sure that when somebody inquires, we're on the phone with them literally within 60 seconds. So in order to do that, we're going to go over to the Sites tab on the side here. Okay, so we're gonna officially create our first ever form in Go High Level together. I'm so honored to be a part of this journey with you. So we're gonna add a form in here, and this looks pretty good out of the box. We're gonna ask the person for their first name, last name, phone number, email. The only other things that I'd really consider adding in here is maybe the city. I always like asking the city, especially if you're offering services in multiple cities. Anytime you have the ability to front load data, collect it immediately up front rather than having to deal with it later is probably a good idea, especially if it can be automated, right? Or having the client manually inserted in. And the only other thing that I like to collect as a service-based business is the actual service that the person is looking for. So we can come into custom fields, we'll add a custom field, and I want to choose a drop-down, meaning that they can only access one answer at a time. They have to choose what this exact service is they're looking for. So I'm going to call this service, and I'm just going to say landscaping. We're going to go with a landscaping example here, and snow removal. Okay, sweet. So, and then we'll just add in the group. This is where it appears under the contact section in the CRM. And we're going to go ahead and load this in, right? So now we have a form, right? And this can live on whatever website it is that you're building. For the purpose of this demo, I'm not going to actually build out the website. All we really need to get this rocking and rolling is the form. And this, practically speaking, is what that form looks like. So essentially what we want to do is we want to make sure that when somebody inquires with this form, they become a new lead, and we follow up with them with the intent of getting them onto a sales call, because if you call within 60 seconds, you increase your conversion rate by 391%. So we have our form, and all we need to do is come back in Go High Level and go to the Automations tab on the left side here, and we're going to create a new workflow and start from scratch. In a nutshell, if you guys are not familiar with automations, there's 2 parts to every single automation. There's a trigger, which is what starts the actual workflow. Like, when does this actually start? And then afterwards, the trigger, what are the actions that you want to take? What do you actually want to do? Do you want to call somebody? Do you want to text somebody? Do you want to email somebody? Do you want to update somebody's information on file or whatever? The options are endless, really, honestly, in this. So it's just the only limitation, I feel like, is your imagination. So we're going to call this the new lead. So in order to get somebody from this form into a new lead workflow, we need to add a trigger here. And this trigger is going to be when a form is submitted, okay? But we don't just want it to be any form, because if we just kept it like this, it's going to be that any form you ever create, whenever it's submitted, it's going to trigger that, right? So instead, what we want to do is have a filter and make sure that it's only starting this particular new lead workflow when the form, which is titled Form 0, which is this form right here, only when that form is submitted, then we start this workflow, right? So that, in a nutshell, is how we start this. And there's a couple things that we want to do. Now, naturally, you might think, hey, let's update the contact field, but in Go High Level, when somebody fills out a form, it automatically updates the contact fields, so you don't have to do that. So what I like to do, first of all, is I like to assign a particular user right? And the reason I like to assign a particular user is because anytime you're dealing with emails and text messages, you're going to need to attach somebody to that to be like, hey, it's Jono from ABC company. Would love to schedule a meeting. Otherwise, it's just going to leave a blank or default, right? So I'm going to go back out of this workflow, and we actually need to add a user into the account here. So I'm going to go ahead and go to settings, and we're going to go to staff here. And I'm just going to add an employee. So it's going to be Jono Catliff, and it's going to be, I'm just going to give myself one of my emails here, and that looks good to me. So I'm going to save this, and now we have our first official person in this account. So that looks good to me. Now all we have to do is come back in here, and we might have to refresh the page one more time. Okay, sweet. So there's the user. So first things first, we have assigned a user. So when form is submitted, we're going to assign myself to that particular contact, right? So awesome. We've assigned somebody. Now the next step is that we want to set up a phone call, right? Now, practically speaking, lead comes in, and we're going to schedule a call between me and whoever that lead is. We have collected their phone number, so this is going to schedule a call right away. Now, in this call whisper section here, this is essentially saying, hey, when you pick up the system is going to call you as the sales rep first. It's going to give you a call whisper. That call whisper could be any message you put here, but what I like to say is, hey, Jono, you have a new lead. Please press any key on the keypad to connect into a call with this person. When you click that key, then it's going to automatically connect you into the call with the person who just filled out the form in a matter of like 5 seconds. So I'm just going to say here, you have a new lead. Please press any key on the keypad to connect into a call with, and we can even put in custom variables here, which is the person's name. So if it was John Smith that inquired, it would say you'll be connected into a call with John Smith. So we'll go ahead and save this now. And what we can do is, the next step is we can send off a text message to John Smith. Now, I think it's important to note here that this text message is only sent if this call is not answered. And the reason that is under the settings here, we have this stop on response here, right? So essentially, this is going to end the workflow for a contact if they reply to a message. So if we check this off or on, what that means is that if you call somebody and you pick up and you have a sales call, it's going to remove them from the workflow. But if you call that person and they don't pick up, then it's going to continue on with the workflow. And if at any point in time that person replies back to any messages, they're going to be removed, right? Now, I think the saying goes, it takes 8 contact attempts to close a deal, right? So the more texts and emails, obviously with taste, that you put in here, the more likely you are going to be at closing a deal. So most businesses only reach out like one time, which is really honestly a freaking tragedy because they end up losing out on a lot of business, and inevitably that almost leads to just being poor in general, right? So we want to add in as many follow-ups as possible. So in here, I'm just going to say, hey, contact first name, and this is going to say Bob. If it's Bob Smith replying to me, and I'm just going to put in a custom variable here. And I'm going to go back, and this time I'm going to put the user's first name, which would now be me because I'm the assigned user here. So it's Jono from ABC company. I just saw that you inquired on our website looking for, and I can put in here, services, and let's try that one more time. Custom field services. Keep in mind the custom field services is the service they just inquired for. If they put landscaping, it's going to say landscaping services here. If they selected snow removal services, it's going to say snow removal services here instead, right? And we could say, I hope and custom fields will go close out of this. We're going to go to right now and day of the week. This could be like Tuesday or Wednesday. I hope your Tuesday is going well. Are you free to jump on a call right now? and we will save this action. Problem is, let's say that person inquires at 2 a.m. Well, you probably don't want to send a text message out at 2 a.m. So we'll go back to the settings here, and we're going to specify a time window, which means that texts, calls, emails, they can only be sent out within a specific time range. If somebody inquires at 2 a.m., it's going to wait until 10 a.m. to actually start this workflow, and then it's going to initiate the call, and then it's going to initiate the text, and then it's going to initiate the emails that you sent out, right? So 10 to 5 p.m. That sounds good to me. And then maybe we want to wait here for 1 minute, and then we're going to send out an email, right? So we can send out an email to the person. And honestly, I'm just going to kind of breeze over the communication here, because at this point in time, I think you get the point with the custom variables. We've done it 3 or 4 times now. And the purpose of this is not how to write a good email. So all I'm going to say here is you can put in from user equals email here, and the from name can be user equals name, and depending on whoever you assign here, it's going to give their email and their name, right? And you can also assign multiple people here. I'm just going to put the subject line and whatever blank for now. You can assign multiple people here, and you can do a round robin as to who gets assigned the lead. Okay, sweet. So that looks good for this particular workflow. That's pretty much more or less as bare bones as possible what you could add in to the new lead workflow. And then you can just play around with it from there and see what else you'd want to add in. I mean, you can see here, there's literally a million and one things that you can do here, right? So this is obviously super, super powerful stuff. In that email, you probably want to get them to schedule a call or whatever, and maybe give them a calendar link in there as well. Just for this text message, you can say, here's my calendar link. And then we'll go in here and do user, and we can do calendar link there, and then they will be able to book on your calendar, right? Now, from here on out, with the 8 touch points, you're just gonna put cadences here. I like to initially message people right away, then wait a day. And then for the second wait, I like it to be at a cadence of an additional day every single time. So I do 1 day, then I do 2 days, and then I do 3 days, and then I do 4 days, and so on and so forth until, it's been about a month or so, right? That's kind of, more or less what I like to do here. So that is the new lead workflow. Now let's move on to the second step, which is, okay, they pick up that call, or they call you back, or you call them, and now you're actually on a sales call, right? So how do we navigate through this scenario here? So then that brings me to the next stage here. We're going to back out of this, and I'm actually just going to activate this workflow as well, and then publish it and save it. Okay, sweet, we're good to go. The next workflow is going to be the sales call workflow, right? So when you actually get off a sales call. Now, there's a lot of different triggers here that we could do. So like, for example, it could be like call status is complete. That might be your initial thoughts when dealing with this, but I would highly recommend not doing that. What I'd recommend doing is having a form being submitted to start this new this sales call workflow. And practically speaking, what I like to do and what I get my sales reps to do is I standardize the sales cycle with my team. I like to have one standardized script. I like to have one standardized everything, so that when my team is getting on calls with clients representing my company, they're doing so in a way that I pre-approved, I think is best. That way you can also have a standardized approach. You can split test that approach to see, if we, for example, change or tweak this part of the sales process or the sales call, and we swap it out with this, you can have control variables tested and optimize that sales call script over time to get the best results, right? But also it acts as a trigger for the rest of the workflow. So what that looks like is we're going to have a form here. So we're going to go back to sites, and we're going to create another form here. And we're actually going to create a folder. And this is going to be the sales call folder. And there's going to be 2 forms specifically that we need to do to set this up properly. And I'm going to break this down so that you guys understand what is actually going on here, because I think that this is really, really powerful stuff if you get this right. So firstly, I like to have an intermediary step on my sales call where essentially all I do, and keep in mind when I say these sales forms, this is not something like, this is a form. Forms are intended primarily for clients. This is an internal form. This is not something that you're sharing with clients. This is only something you're sharing with your sales team, okay? So with that being said, we have this email form here. So this is like literally just clients. I'm gonna call this client check. Now, what's going on here is you are going to want to create a two-step where you enter in the client's email, because this is going to depend on the functionality of everything else. It's just easier to do it this way. I'm going to leave it at that. That's all I'm going to say for this for now. We're going to backpedal onto this in approximately 5 minutes from now, because for me to explain it without giving you a visualization of what it actually looks like is practically meaningless. So we're just going to circle back to this at a later point in time. And then we're going to create another form here. And this form, and I promise I'll tie this all together. I can't explain this without tying it together, and you should understand this very clearly at the end. This is going to be the sales call form. So for example, oops, I just deleted that. In here, we can do first name in here. This is whatever, you can put in whatever it is that you want in this form. Now, what I like to do and what I've done and that I found tremendous success with my business is the sales call is where you want to front load all of the data. Because if you collect as much data on the sales call process here, right, then it's going to be easy. It's going to be freaking easy for you to automate the rest of the stuff, because appointments, like what information do you need to send emails and text messages and do this properly? Everything that you've collected on the sales call is good enough for the appointments. It's good enough for the contract signed. You should be asking for things like price and date and all that kind of stuff, hashing that on the sales call. That way you can automatically generate a contract, and so on and so forth, right? Like once you front load the data by asking it one time, you don't have to go back, call Stacy up 2 weeks from now and be like, hey, Stacy, can you provide me with additional context that I forgot to ask you on the initial sales call? Once you hammer it down, it's going to streamline everything in your business. So I would highly recommend spending the time and making sure that this is right. This is probably where you're going to spend the majority of your time automating your business, because this is the most important step. So for example, we could have in here like service. Maybe we add another field in here, and this is like, I don't know, the date picker, and I'm just going to put in here service date and click save. This will be in the additional info tab under the client section here. And I'm just going to do one more, and it's going to be a monetary field. Where is it? Monetary. And this is going to be service, I don't know, service price, something like that. I'm just going to keep this super bare bones just to kind of give you a good depiction of what this looks like. And all we have to do now is just add in the service date, and we're going to add in the service price here. Okay. So more or less, that's a good start. What we can also do here is we can add in multi-line text here. I like to add it onto the form. And this way I can just pretty much put in whatever, actually, sorry, this is not the right, this is not what I want. Customized, I think it's here, text here, perfect. So this is it. I just want to create a sales script for my employees to be able to go through, right? So I could say, first, ask how their day is, right? Maybe you ask like, what are the client's needs? I don't know. I'm just making this up on the fly. But obviously, you need to customize this to your business. Tell them about our business. You could be like, this is our social proof section here. And then after telling them about the business, you can say why we're the best fit, all that kind of stuff, right? This is your sales script in a nutshell here. So you get on the phone, you talk to them, and you don't have to do it this way. And then you build rapport, and then you eventually go through the whole sales call, grab the questions, and then this is going to help front load the data so that moving forward, we just have all the information, right? So let's move back from here. Now we've created two forms. We've done the client email check, and then we've done the sales call form. And we're going to go into funnels here. Now you could do websites, funnels, doesn't really matter, but for the purpose of this tutorial, we're going to use funnels. That's just what I've been doing. Funnels are like essentially the exact same thing as a website, but the only difference is that it is a multi-paged website with the intent of bringing somebody from page 1 to page 2 to page 3 to page 4 and so on and so forth, right? So it's a one direction, essentially, website that provides or sends them down a specific page. This is all internally, right? So we're going to call this email check. And then We'll just add in the path here. It doesn't really matter. We'll create the email check path, and then we're going to create the sales call path here. Sales call. Okay, sweet. So we have 2 stages in here, and all we have to do is just take those forms and add them onto this website so that when somebody fills out the email check, then they go onto the sales call. So let's go ahead and let's do this. So we're going to create from blank, and you can style this however you want, but I'm just going to keep it really simple here. We just are going to add in some elements here, and the element is going to be a form. Okay, so we need to add in a row, 1 column, and this is going to be a form. So first things first, we have the client check, and we can save this. And the only other thing we want to do is we go to the next step in the workflow. So when they do the client check, then we go into the second step. And let me circle back to why we do this email check. So we put in the client's email here, right? And that is because on the sales call step, there's a lot of fields that we have already had the client fill in. So we'll add that form in here again, and this is going to be form number 3. Right? And if you recall, on our initial new lead form, the client already filled in their first name, last name, phone number, email, city, service. So these particular forms, they can be sticky forms, meaning that it will pull in the person's information. So if you enter in the email in the first thing, it's going to be like, oh, this is Bob Smith. Okay, yeah, we've encountered Bob Smith before. Okay, let's go ahead and pull in the rest of his data, right? And it can pre-populate his first name, his last name, his phone, his email. And the reason why that's also important is because if you were to misspell the email here, for example, and you had a typo in here, it's going to create a new contact. So you want to be very careful with the email you put in. I always copy and paste it in. So let's go ahead and let's just first demo this whole thing so you guys can see real hand what this looks like, firsthand what this looks like. So I'm going to put in my information and 5545, and then we're going to just test this out. I'm going to do landscaping and done. Okay, sweet. So looks good to me. We've submitted the form. What we can do is we can actually come back in here and take a look and see that, first of all, this client has been created in the CRM just by filling out that form, right? Just by somebody entering in that information. We already have first name, last name, email, phone number, all of that kind of stuff. And if we go into the automations tab here, it looks like they have entered into the automations tab here, and it's just going to be processing the information, which should take a couple seconds. Let's actually just take a look and see what's going on here. So it looks like we've executed the person or assigned it to somebody, and now it's just waiting to call. Now, the reason why it's waiting to call is because we don't actually have a phone number in the account yet. And if you don't have a phone number, then you're not going to be able to call and text people. So we're going to go into the settings at the bottom left here where my face is cutting off the screen, and we're going to go into phone numbers here. And I'm just going to go ahead and I'm actually just going to buy a phone number so that we can walk through the rest of this together. So I'm going to add a phone number straight through Go High Level. And I'm going to choose something because I live in Canada, and this looks good to me. I don't know where the hell that is, but I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to buy that one. Proceed to buy. It costs $1.15 USD per month to have this in your account. Okay, sweet. And we have successfully purchased. And if we come back into the contact section now, let's take a look, and we're going to we're essentially going to restart this. We're going to, I'm going to copy this phone number just so that it's easier for me to type in. I'm going to remove them from this workflow, okay? And we're going to redo this whole thing just because the first time I didn't have the phone number built out. So practically speaking, what that looks like is I'm going to enter in this form one more time. Oops, you can see here I misspelled the email, which is important. And we're going to choose landscaping and submit. Okay. Now let's go back into this client here. And let's see if we have successfully enrolled him. So I'm going to go into that workflow, enrollment history, and it's going to say waiting for time window. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to force the contact to the next step here because I actually want to push it through. And you can see that it's not going to work. So I'm just going to do like 11:45 p.m. and whatever, right? And unfortunately test this one more time. But I think it's also really important too that you guys see how this works, because if you get to the stage and you can't make it work, then it's going to take you a lot of time. So we're going to go back into the contact and we're going to remove him from the contact. Now, if you guys want to see where he's at in the contact, you just have to click this button here, and then it's going to take you to this kind of screen here with the enrollment history, and you can see who's enrolled. But this is like a one-by-one pane of who's enrolled. But if you want to see every action that's happened, you go to execution logs, and then you can see everything play by play, what's going on. So we're going to remove him from the workflow here, and we're going to try this one more time. So we're going to come through, refresh the page, and add in this information. Oops. Okay. gmail.com, Toronto, landscaping, I consent. And I just want to make sure that we set this up properly with the time zones, with the windows. Okay, perfect. So looks good to me. Now we're going to circle back and see if the person has been entered into the workflow for the third time. Okay, so now, oh, that's super weird. Waiting for the right time window. Okay, I'm just going to remove this time window completely. And I mean, yeah, I guess for whatever reason, I'm on some weird ass time zone right now. So that's my bad. I guess I just randomly chose something. I thought I was in Eastern Standard Time. So clearly I was mistaken. So we're going to unfortunately have to do this one more time. Okay. Okay, Toronto and landscaping, and I consent. And just before doing that, I'm going to remove this contact from the workflow so that we can enter them in properly. So they've been removed. We've also removed the time window here, so that's not going to block us anymore from entering this person in. And now we're going to submit, and fingers crossed for the fourth time it should work. Okay, there we go. So we have the call. It was unsuccessful because I guess that's just not an actual number in service. And then we also sent out the text message as well. So, hey, Jono, it's Jono from ABC company, blah, 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 right? And if you looked out far enough on the time horizon, there'd be multiple emails, text messages if the person never replied. If they did reply, then they would be removed from this particular workflow. Okay, so that's where we're at so far. Now I want to move past this onto the sales call section here, right? So practically speaking, what I like to do is anytime I get a new lead coming in here to our CRM, I just like to hit this clipboard here, which is the email. I tell our sales reps, hey, don't actually don't try and manually type in the email, because chances are 20% of the time you're going to get it wrong. And they can just come into like sites, for example, and go to the sales call form. They would just have like a link to this. So it's like nice and easy. And they're going to enter this in. And just before I actually go ahead and do this, I want to go back to these forms here, right? So we're going to go to builders here, and we're going to go to the 2 sales call forms that we selected. And remember how I said that when you submit this, it should autofill the rest of the information in here. It didn't autofill the rest of the information in here. And that's because I missed one step. And that is that in this form number 3 here, if we enter this in, we need to go into the settings, options, and go to form settings and choose sticky contact. In a nutshell, sticky contact will autofill contact information previously entered, so you don't have to enter it in twice. So this is important that it's checked off. However, it's also equally important that you make sure that on the client check that this is not checked off. So for the client check form, okay, the option, stick with me here because I know this is a bit overwhelming, but this should not be checked off, and it should be checked off for the second form. So let me explain why that is the case, okay? So you come in here, you enter this email in, now you click button, or the next step, and we have the sticky form here. So the sticky form is auto-loading this information. That is why we have the two-step process. Step number one is so that you enter in the email, you get more bang for your buck so that you don't have to manually enter in all this other information that you've already collected on the client. It's already done, out of the way, easy, okay? That's a nice little modification there. And then the reason why you also don't want this to be sticky contact is because if you came in here and it was sticky contact, that means that it's sticking to that current contact. So you have Bob, let's say you fill out Bob's form, and then you go to Sandy. You would overwrite Bob with Sandy if you had that sticky contact for the second part. The reason why there on this particular first form there is no sticky contact checked off is because when you start the workflow now, it's going to reset. Right? It's going to reset the contact, and then you can enter in whatever email, and then you can always go on to the next person, right? But if you had this as sticky contact, it would overwrite Bob with Sandy, with Rachel, with Dylan, with Francis, or whatever, right? And by having the first form not have the sticky contact checked off, but having the second form have the sticky contact checked off, then that means you reset on the first form, it goes to the second form. On the second form, you don't have to enter in the details. Now you're on the call, right? And let's say this is Dylan that you're talking to. You're like, hey Dylan, it's Jono from ABC company. What's up? Like, how's it going, man? Like, it's great to meet you. Talk about why, ABC company is the right fit for you. And then you just enter in all the details. Okay, you're looking for landscaping services. You're looking for the 27th of December and maybe snow removal services for December. And the price is going to be $1,000. Okay, sounds good. So we have now front loaded this data, and we click submit here, okay? And essentially that is where this next workflow starts, right? So if you recall, we've already, we created this sales call workflow, right? And if you're struggling on where to find that, all you have to do is come back into automations and then just create another automation, right? So this is, the next stage. Now I'm going to create a trigger as the form submission, right? So we have a form. That form was the sales call that we just submitted, right? But when this is submitted, it's gonna start the next section of the automation journey, which is, keep in mind, form 3, right? Which is this main sales call page. And that's going to start this second part of the workflow, which is the sales call portion right here. Okay, so we're on we're on to the next step here, right? Now, essentially, there's a couple things we want to do here. If you finish a sales call with somebody, you do not want to send out messages being like, hey, do you want to jump on a sales call? I saw that you inquired with our business. Hey, Sandy, do you want to jump on a sales call? It would be great to chat with you on the phone, right? You don't want to do that because you already had the sales call with Sandy. So the first thing we need to do is remove Sandy from that workflow, right? So coming back in here, we're going to choose remove from workflow. And we're just going to choose another workflow that we're removing the contact from. And this is going to be the new lead workflow. Okay, done. Second thing is I want to assign that lead to somebody else, right? And the reason why is like sometimes in instances like, and I think this is really important, somebody fills out that new lead form, right? They inquire on your website, but some people, they don't. And then you manually enter somebody in. And if you don't, like every single step, you should always be assigning a user to that person, because the last thing you want to do is send out a text message being like, hey, blank, or hey, Bob, it's blank from ABC company. It was nice meeting you today, because you forgot to assign yourself as the user, right? So just making sure that every single step along the way, you're always canceling out the last step in the automation, and you're assigning somebody to that automation, so that essentially you're never going to send emails or text messages where it blanks out on your name or whatnot. So that is essentially the next step here, right? Now let's move on past this. You could like wait, for example, I don't know, 5 minutes, and we could send a text message to that person, right? And we could say, hey, whatever, it was nice chatting with you today, right? I've sent an email with the details we spoke about, right? I'm not gonna overcomplicate this. This is practically all I'm gonna do. You can send out emails afterwards. I'm just gonna put in a bunch of BS here because it ultimately doesn't matter for the purpose of this tutorial. Oops. Okay. At gmail.com. Sweet. Awesome. And more or less, that's really the second part of this workflow, is just sending out additional communication with the person at the right cadence. And also, the other thing that we probably want to do as well is we want to create a contract for the person, right? And an invoice. I like pairing these up together. Some businesses, they have estimates, or they do proposals, or they do contracts or invoices. For me, I just like, and it may be, I'm biased that it's just my particular industry, but I like coupling contracts and invoices together as a 2-in-1 document. I don't like sending off one thing and then waiting and then sending off another thing and then waiting and then sending off another thing. It's just every piece of every step you add in to the process just adds more friction, and that literally makes more people drop off and you make less money, right? It's like if you, for example, have a form and every question you add on that form increases friction and reduces the amount of people that inquire. The more steps you have, the more friction, the less people you will get through the door at the end of the day. Obviously, it's subjective to the industry that you're in, but that's just the way I see it. So from here, we can literally go ahead and create a contract and automatically send it. So we can just do send document, right? So we can send a document immediately to that person. You'll just choose from yourself who you're sending it to, and then we have to go ahead and actually create this document. So going back into Go High Level, we have this payments tab here. That's where we're going to come in here, and we're going to go to contracts or documents and contracts, and we're going to create a new template to send off to somebody. So in this template, I'm just going to start from scratch. There's really, you can customize it really however you want it. It doesn't really matter. I'm not going to go into styling this at all. I'm just going to point out 1 or 2 or 3 things here. First thing is that you want to enable direct payments, right? Because this will allow it to become a 2-in-1 document where they sign and then they pay, right? And on this part, you're just going to want signatures, both probably from you, and also you're going to want a signature probably from yourself as well, or the client or whatnot. So this will be the contact, and then this could be like me, for example. And then I could add in here some text, right? So it's like, I don't know, landscaping contract for, and then I can put in the person's name, right? So landscaping contract for Jono, for example. And this will literally just populate the contact's first name. Then you can add in all your legal requirements, everything you want to add to the contract, and then have 2 signature boxes for somebody to be able to go and sign, right? And then that's really more or less it, right? You have your contract in here. You can customize it however you want. Other than that, I guess the only other thing that I would want to add in here is a pricing table. So we're going to do a product list. We're going to add that in here, right? With signatures at the bottom here. Okay, sweet. So the only downside to Go High Level's contract builder, and personally I don't use it, keep in mind, is just that the amount that you can customize with the line items is very limited. And I think this will change as time goes on, but, and I use PandaDoc, and I can link in the description how I do contracts, but it's just so, it would take so much extra time to explain that it's just not worth including in this video. So I can link it as a second video. But essentially, the only problem is like you can add, like you can't from their automation builder select a template and then be like, hey, I want to add in this product, but not add in that product, have this discount, or so on and so forth. Edit the quantity for this to be 5 instead of 4, have this as an optional upsell. All of those things you cannot do automatically through here. You have to manually do here, which kind of blows. That's why I use PandaDoc, because PandaDoc can do all of that kind of stuff all by itself. But if you're a business and you're just offering, you know, package A, B, and C for landscaping services, and you just have 3 price points and that's it, then this is perfect, and that's all you need. Is Go High Level is going to do it for you, right? So we can add in a product here, and this can be like package A, right? And this can be like $1,000, and we'll just call this package A, and this will be a service that we're rendering for the client. So here we go. We could have like 3 contracts, for example, if you had 3 agreements or 3 different pricing tables, package A, package B, package C, right? We'll save this, and I'm just going to call this package A here. And we need to send off package A in the automation. So when somebody fills out that particular sales call form, we want to automatically send them off package A here. So we'll go ahead and do that. We're going to go send document and contracts, and we're going to do from user, and it's going to be package A, right? So done. But the problem is what happens if you have package B and you have package C and so on and so forth? Well, what we're going to do here is we're going to add that as a question. That's a perfect question to add onto the sales call form. So in form 3, I'm going to title this sales call form, and we'll save this. I want to add in another question here, right? And this question will be a single dropdown, and it's going to be package, and it's going to be package A or package B or package C. We're going to click save here. Well, oh, sorry, we're going to add this into the additional info section here and then save it. Okay, now that we've created, oh, we didn't even add it in here. My apologies. So we're going to do package, add it to the bottom here, and you can just like have your sales rep be like, hey, do you want package A? Do you want package B? Do you want package C? Another thing you could ask in here as well is, do you want to send the contract immediately? Do you want to manually send it off? And then if you send, it immediately, then it obviously fires. If you set it manually, then you create it and you send it yourself. So that's another question you can have here. Circling back to our automation here, I'm just going to refresh the page because we just created a new variable that we're going to have to load in here. And because it's a static page, it probably hasn't loaded the variable we created yet. So we're going to add something before this send document and contracts section here. And I'm going to do an if statement here. Okay. And this if statement is going to be like package. And more or less, this is going to be package A. And we're going to do contact details. And we're going to type into this package is A. So what we're practically doing here is we're doing conditional logic. So we're checking which package did the sales rep select on the sales call. If they selected package A, then it's going to go down package A route. If it's package B, it's going to go down package B route. If it's package C, then it's going to go down package C route, and then it's going to automatically send the right package to the client, right? So we have package A done. We have package B here as well, and this is going to go down. This is going to check for the dependency that package is B that the client asked for, and then we have C as well. Okay, perfect. So we have 3 different packages here. And all we do now is we just copy this potential document over and send the right deal to the right person, right? Now, obviously, you'd go ahead and you'd create a package B, you'd create a package C, and then you'd send that properly to the person, but that's just kind of like how I would go about it. Once again, the only downside is that this logic depends on having predefined packages here that you can send to people. If you have units and the units are going to change the price and all that kind of stuff, then what you could do here is you could just make sure that first of all you have to you change the signing authority. So essentially in this you have I don't actually know if you can do it in Go High Level here or not on the document page, but you may just want to manually create based on a predefined template and just change the quantity once and then send it off, right? So that's the only downside. But once again, it's like when I say downside, I say it loosely because it's like, oh man, I got to spend 10 seconds doing something. It's not going to take very long to do, and it's still going to save you a boatload of time doing it this way anyways. So that's practically speaking, we've done the sales call section here. We've sent off the agreement and all that kind of stuff. Now the thing is like, you get off the sales call with somebody, and what I like to do is I like to book follow-up calls with people. So I find that the best strategy on sales calls is to book a follow-up sales call or book a follow-up meeting on that sales call at the end of the call. So you're like, hey, Randy, great chatting with you today. Thank you so much. When's a good time, that we can schedule another call? Does the same time next week work for you? And usually they'll be like, yeah, or this time works, right? So you come into the contacts details, right? And then you just book that appointment right through here to have a follow-up call at whatever the time is that you're looking for. Now you'll notice that we don't have a calendar, so we can't even do this yet. So we just come into settings here, and I would just come into calendars, which is on the sidebar here, and we can just, create a calendar. It's going to be a personal calendar. I'm just going to call this whatever. I'm going to select myself. I'm going to give it a random name here, and that looks good to me. So nothing too crazy. Essentially, we have our calendar set up, right? And more or less, we just need to create workflows to deal with the booking of calendars, right? And you'll know that notice that, when you're dealing with meetings, there's nothing worse than somebody no-showing or canceling or whatever, right? The cool thing is that all of this, like this whole system, can be automated. And I'm just going to kind of go over the high level overview of how you can do this. But essentially, you'd create a new lead workflow. You'd create a new workflow, multiple workflows, and you'd create one for every single stage that a client can go through in the appointment booking process. So I'm going to call this appointment confirmed. And this is going to be triggered when this appointment status is set to be confirmed. So we'll add a filter here, and the appointment status here is confirmed. Now we're going to have to do this, and I'm going to breeze over this quickly, but for canceled and no-showed are the two main ones, and you can do invalid as well. So circling, we have our trigger set up, right? And the first thing that we're going to want to do is when it's an appointment confirmation sequence, we want to make sure that this is unchecked. It's not stop and response. If somebody says, hey, great, I'll see you tomorrow, you still want to send a text message 30 minutes before being like, hey, can we chat tomorrow? So first things first, you'd send off an email, right? This email is going to essentially say, once again, I'm just going to type in random BS here because this doesn't matter, but you're just going to want to say, like, here's our confirmed appointment. You can use the variables here. So custom values, you can do appointment. You could do like the start time, which is going to be like 2 p.m. on, and then you could do like the date of the appointment that you're meeting on, 2 p.m. on June 13th or whatever, right? It actually formats it in a way that's user-friendly. So you're not looking at that with sus in your eyes being like, is this automated completely, or is there a possibility that this person didn't automate this? So obviously you want the latter, right? So you can add in like additional content like that. And then there's other cool variables in here. You can say, hey, if you want to cancel, you can cancel through this link. If you want to reschedule, you can reschedule through this link. And if you want to add this to your Google Calendar or iCalendar, you can go ahead and do so here, right? So you're giving them a lot of options to work with. The reschedule link is essentially going to reconfirm the meeting, and it's going to enter them right back into the same workflow, just at a later point in time. And for the cancellation workflow, this will trigger the other workflow, which would be a cancellation workflow. So somebody comes in, books an appointment, they're like, crap, I can't make it. They cancel the appointment, they enter the cancellation workflow, which tries to re-engage with the person to book another call. So there we have it. We have a first email that comes out, and we just confirm the appointment when it's confirmed. And then we can add a wait step in here. And I'm not going to go super in detail on all the nitty-gritty details of how to best set this up, but essentially we need to change the wait for. It's not a time delay, it's an event/appointment time. And what we're going to do is we're going to wait, let's say 30 minutes before the appointment. Okay, so it's, say the appointment's in 7 days from now. It's going to wait 6 days, 23 hours, and 30 minutes. And then it's going to, let's say, send off a text message to the person just being like, I'll give you a call in 30 minutes or whatever, right? Done. So that's essentially more or less how you can structure this type of workflow. The most important things are that it's not a stop on response, and you just drip out notifications. I like to have an email immediately, email day before, and then text message 30 minutes before a meeting. Usually I find that results in the best chance of somebody showing up. You'd think that more reminders is a good thing, but honestly speaking, like a lot of people just get really annoyed with this kind of stuff, and I just like keeping it to 3. That's like kind of the sweet spot where people don't get too annoyed, but they also get the message and they end up showing up. So that's the appointment confirmed workflow. We'll go ahead and we're going to create one more workflow here, and that is canceled slash no-show, right? So we can actually bundle these together. So we're going to do appointment status is, for example, canceled, let's just say. And we're going to do another one where the appointment status is no-showed. Sweet. And all we have to do to make this simple is we could do a conditional step here, if, and we're just going to say, hey, was this canceled? Let's go down the canceled path. If it's no-showed, we go down the no-showed path. So we can call this canceled. And we're going to look for the workflow trigger is, okay, that's convenient. It just doesn't show because we just made these. So we have to, unfortunately, refresh. I'm glad I'm running into issues like this because this is really important. Like if you're gonna start debugging this, you're gonna run into the same problems, guaranteed, 100%, and it's important to know how to deal with these. So we're gonna do if slash else, and yeah, so this will be canceled, and then the workflow trigger is appointments. Oh man, okay. I just took a shot in the dark there. I named them both the same thing. So I'm just gonna say no show, and workflow trigger is the bottom appointment status here. Of course, we'd just come in and change this name. So we'd click on it and the workflow trigger name is gonna be changed to canceled in this instance. And this one is gonna be no show. And then hopefully that updates. Okay, perfect. So we got it right. Awesome. Same kind of deal here. We're just essentially saying, hey, this person canceled or they didn't show up to the appointment. Let's try and re-engage them. So we can send off an email here. And this email is going to be just trying to get them to rebook. The only thing I want to show you in this email is that they have in the appointment section here, you have a rescheduling link, right? So you just send them off this link in case they want to book another appointment with you, and this will automatically confirm it again. Now, some of you guys out there might be thinking, why the hell would I give people permission to cancel appointments? I don't want to give them permission. I just want to have like the call or whatever, and that's it. And I think that's somewhat of a valid point. I don't agree with it, but I think it's a valid point. Maybe I agree with it for certain industries, but the reason I like having the cancellation workflow in there is because if somebody wants to cancel, they're just going to no-show. And if I'm taking a call and maybe I have to step out for dinner to take that call and they no-show, I sit there for 10 minutes, I try and recall them back or whatever, that's just a massive pain in the ass. And I don't want to do that. And I'm sure you don't want to do that. So if somebody's going to no-show anyways, I'd just give them the option to cancel so that either I can enjoy that dinner or I can book another call at that time to talk to somebody who actually does want to talk to me and actually does want to close the deal. And that way you get paid more money. So that's just my perspective on this. So that's more or less the appointment workflow. After the sales call happens, you book an appointment, and then after every single other appointment, you keep booking appointments until that person either says, yes, hell yeah, I want to move forward and I want to pay you money now, or no, I don't want to move forward, right? So now we've gone through the process of actually going from new lead to sales call to appointments, and then we have contract signs, right? So practically speaking, what's going on here is we have this stunning contract here, right? Now, the issue is that not everyone who signs pays, right? It would be a perfect world if everyone who signed paid. Most people do pay that sign, but it's not always the case. And we need to follow up with these people in case they sign, but they don't pay. And a lot of people like dragging their feet too. I mean, there is nothing more annoying, in my opinion. I can think of a lot more annoying things, but there's few things that are more annoying than somebody signing and being like, sure, no problem, I'll pay. How does 6 months sound? How does 10 years sound? Is that okay with you? I'll pay you, in the afterlife or whatever. And you're just sitting there being like, man, like, why did you even sign in the first place? So anyways, how we combat that is we create another workflow here. And this workflow is essentially more or less going to be contract signed workflow. And first things first, we need to have a trigger here, right? And this trigger is going to be documents and contracts, and it's going to be that the status, my bad there, status equals or is and signed/accepted. Now, if you recall, the last thing that we did and what I mentioned earlier is the first thing we got to do is remove the user from the sales call, from the new lead workflow. I always like doubling down and removing people from all the previous workflows, like a canceled, no-showed, sales call, new lead. Sometimes abnormalities happen, like for whatever reason, they still might be in the new lead and then they get to this, and I just like being safe rather than sorry. So I'll just remove them, and then I'll also make sure that to assign somebody as the user to that particular workflow. So I'm going to assign myself to this. And then, yeah, the next thing is we can just send out an email, right? And we can say, please pay now, thanks, bye. And that seems like a totally reasonable email to send to somebody. And then of course, the first thing they're going to be like is, oh my gosh, I have a revelation. Of course, why didn't I pay earlier? Forget 6 months from now, I'm going to pay right now. And then they pull out their credit card and pay you. Anyways, that was my, that was a dad joke. I apologize. But yeah, so now we have this deal going on here, right? And essentially we can just drip this out over time. I like to follow the cadence of we wait 1 day for the second, 2 days for the third, 3 days for the fourth. Progressively it gets longer and longer and longer the further out you go. Now moving on to the next step is essentially the layover or the crossover between when somebody is changing from being a lead into being a paying customer, right? And this comes down to when somebody has paid this contract. Now, keep in mind, they sign and then they can pay straight through the document as well. And just one other thing in this, where the hell did it go? I'm just gonna back out of this. I think this is an old tab. Circle back in. Let's see if it's there now. Contract signed workflow. Perfect. In this email, we can also include in there a link to pay. So we can do like, where is it? Attribution of phone call right now, count, message, calendar, appointment, contact, invoice. Let's just see, signed, accepted. Yeah, so let's just see here. It's not showing the invoice section. So what I'm going to do is I think I'm going to change the filter here, or the trigger here, so that instead of it being a document and contract, I'm going to do invoice status is sent. Yeah, I think that looks good to me. And practically speaking, these are the exact same, right? Invoice sent is going to happen when the contract's signed, because when the contract's signed, the invoice will automatically be sent. And that's going to open up the ability to provide a link to the invoice. So we'll come back in here, we'll go to custom values. And now we have access to this invoice tab here that we didn't have before. And all I want to do is I just want to send the URL of the invoice so that they can actually pay through that email. You're not sending an email being like, hey, can you pay? And they're like, yeah, but I don't have the link. Can you please send that over? It's just going to kill two birds with one stone, right? So that's going to really help out. Now, the next thing here is the actual deposit has been paid. They have become a customer, right? So this is going to be deposit paid / customer, and this is going to be triggered. So the new trigger is going to be more or less invoice, and the status is going to be paid. Okay, sweet. So you have got money, the client has paid you, we're good to go. Next step here is that we want to essentially, there's a lot of different things, like I will usually have project managers or customer success managers that take over at this point in time. But it's just ultimately up to you how you want to proceed. First things first, I mean, we could do a lot of different things here. We could update the contact, right? We could update any fields that we want. We could do, let's say, contact type is now changed from lead to customer. You can update any custom fields that you want on them. And we could, let's just say, wait a minute. And what I like to do is say, send off a text message. And in this, I'd be like, thanks for paying, whatever. Our customer rep is going to take over. They'll reach out in 2 minutes, right? And then we just put a wait step on here again for 2 minutes. And meanwhile, the customer's like, wow, they're super responsive. I can't believe how fast they're getting back to me. Like, this is fantastic customer service. I'm like, you're absolutely damn right it is. It just happens to be all 100% automated. And we'll just change over to a different user, save that. Obviously, I just have one user programmed in here, so it's not going to work. And then we just send out another SMS being like, hey, first name, you know, it's user first name, user first name. Anytime I get stuck there at the top, you can just scroll down and it'll change. It's user first name from ABC company, super happy to be working with you. So on and so forth. You guys can figure out how you want to message this, but the only important thing here is that we include the next step, which is the onboarding. What this means is like, look, somebody signs, they pay, and that's great. And we front loaded most of the sales data with the sales call, but there might be additional information that we still need from that client, right? So we need to send them over a form for them to be able to fill that information out properly. So what we're going to do is we're going to create an onboarding form for them, right? And I'm not going to get fancy with this. I'm just going to show you guys how I'd set this up, and then you guys can do it however you want. But in the builder here, we're going to add a form, and we're going to start from scratch. And this is going to be the onboarding form, right? So let's just retitle this onboarding form, and we can do options. If you want, you can have it sticky. It's up to you. It's optional. And any additional questions you need from that person, you can get them to fill out here, right? So I don't know, like, let's just say, we add in a custom field here, which is a multi-line, and we just say, how do you want your hedges and trees to be trimmed? I don't know, something like that. And I don't know what landscaping companies ask on these forms, but I'm just going to go with something like that. It's just like customer service questions to ensure the highest quality possible, right? So save that. We have our onboarding form, whatever. That's good to me, right? And all you want to do here is you just want to pass in this form here to this text message or email or whatever. Can you please complete our onboarding forms, right? And look, this is like not perfect. You would never send that in a million years, but the whole goal here is by text message, by email, we're just trying to move them on to another step. I wouldn't have it as like a form. I would have this on a website, right? And then the whole goal here is just to get them to fill this out. So now we've kind of done the onboarding thing. Now, if you guys are struggling to ask questions, you can just go into Google and you can do landscaping onboarding form, or landscaping, you can just put your service in here, onboarding form, and then you can do file type equals PDF. And then there's going to be a bunch of like PDF files from other companies that tell you their questions that they ask people. So this is a good way for you guys to just find like additional questions you can ask, especially if you're new to the game and you're not too sure what to ask. That's a great place to start. So now we have the onboarding kind of done, right? It's out of the way. We've sent off onboarding forms to the person. And the thing is, though, is that just because you send it to somebody doesn't mean they're going to fill it out. Most people don't fill it out right away, and you have to follow up multiple times. And that's where essentially the team notifications come into play here. So I'm actually going to move past project management and assigning team members for now. And then we're going to circle back afterwards, because I think that because these are so heavily tied together, I want to talk about these at the same time. Essentially, we have, okay, I'm just going to exit off with that. We have completed this onboarding form, right? And we've added it into that particular workflow. So that's great. Now, what I want to do now is I want to send follow-up notifications. So if you guys, so if you recall, in the deposit paid, we sent off that text message or email or whatever to include the onboarding form, right? We're going to create another workflow here, okay? And this other workflow is going to be essentially notifications. and I'll put like client. And I'd also do the same thing for team or your internal team or your contractors or your employees. For the purposes of this tutorial, I'm just going to do one so you kind of get the point here. But essentially what we need to do is two things. I'm actually going to back out of this and just create one additional step here. So actually, let me walk you through this logic just so in real time it makes sense at the same time. So when the contract's won, right, we can just also have a simultaneous workflow working at the same time. So this is going to be, the trigger is going to be when the invoice here has been paid as well. So these are concurrent workflows working at the same time. And more or less what we want to do is we want to drip out notifications leading up to their service date. So if you recall on the initial sales call, we asked, hey, what day do you want us to do the plumbing on or the landscaping on? And they're like, whatever, the 27th of this month or whatever. And what we can do is we can have this event start date, and we can enter in a custom field here. And this is going to be the service date, okay? And more or less, we're just programming in this workflow the actual date that a client has their services to be rendered on. And what we're going to do is we're going to set a wait step here. And this wait step is not going to be a time delay, but it's going to be an event delay. And we're going to do, let's say, 14 days before the landscaping services. And we're going to do an if statement here, okay? And this if statement is going to be onboarding complete or onboarding not complete, okay? Those are more or less the two options. And we need to check if that form has been completed. And this we haven't created yet, so I'm literally just gonna put in a blank for now, and we have to create a way to mark it as complete. And how we do that is we're gonna create another workflow here for when that onboarding form is finished. So when somebody fills out this onboarding form, we need to have a way for us to know that that form has been completed. So we'll create another workflow here. We're going to start from scratch. And in this workflow, it's going to be onboarding form complete, okay? And the trigger here is going to be form submitted. And this form submitted is going to be that onboarding form. So in a nutshell, onboarding form submitted. All we have to do is just do two things. We're going to add a tag onto the person. Tag is just a piece of text that you add onto somebody to segment them later on. And this is going to be onboarding form complete, and we're good to go, right? That looks good to me. And we can just send off an email saying, hey, thank you very much. Thank you for filling out the form. Oh, the writing there is atrocious. Okay, sweet. So a@gmail.com, and good. We got our email. We have our tag. Now, just circling back here, we have the onboarding form, right? We sent that off. Client success manager reached out to the person. They're like, hey, thank you so much for working with us. Here's the onboarding form. You need to complete this particular form, right? We need to know things like how you want your hedges and trees trimmed, whatever the questions are. And then we need to know when, in this workflow, we need to know when clients have filled out that form, because depending on the actions they've taken, either they fill out the form or they haven't, it's going to change the way we interact with the person. If they haven't filled out the form, we're going to say, hey, can you please fill out the form? If they have filled out the form, then we either say nothing at all, or we ask them we just skip over that, right? But in these emails, you might jam in like 1 or 2 or 3 different notifications you want to send the person, being like, hey, can we jump on a call? Hey, can you complete the planning form? Hey, did you have any questions for me, right? We're asking all 3 at the same time, but just because they've completed the form doesn't mean that we still don't want to jump on a call or follow up and see if they're being taken care of, if they have any questions, right? We still want to reach out, show face, talk to them and all that kind of stuff, right? So we just need to determine whether or not they filled out this particular form. And how we know that is when they fill out the form, they get a tag added on. That tag is the onboarding form complete. And then in this workflow, all we're going to check for is we're going to say, do they have the tag? So onboarding form complete includes the tag onboarding form complete. So if they filled out the form, they have the tag added on, and then we're going to take a look and see, is this tag added on? And if it is added on, we're going to send a different email than if it's not added on. We're going to say, I don't know, I'm just going to kind of go through this pretty quick here, but we're going to say, hey, do you want to jump on a call? Would be great to chat and finalize, I don't know, details. And then the second thing that you're going to want to say is, let me know if you have any questions, so on and so forth. Obviously, probably the world's most, I could win a Guinness World Record for the most atrocious email ever sent, hands down. But you kind of get the point. The purpose is not the emails here. And then the next thing here is like, hey, just wanted to follow up to see if you're able to finish our onboarding forms. The more information we have, the better we'll be at providing the best outcome for you, or whatever, something like that. And then here's a link to that form, right? So we'll do onboarding form, whatever. Okay, awesome. And then you can just drip this out over time. It doesn't have to just be, waiting 14 days before. We could go ahead and we could copy this, right? So that instead of it being 14 days before, now we have a follow-up at 7 days before. We send off a different message, and we can hook these back up together by doing a go to and then adding it to the next wait step here. And you can just go down this logic branch all the way to the bottom. Same kind of deal with team. If you have team members and you want to send them notifications leading up to the service, you can do it that way. Now, this is going to obviously change depending on the service model that you have. This is not going to be perfect for everyone, and there's other ways to go about doing that. And that actually brings me into the next step here, which is the project management, right? Because sometimes you have a defined date where you can send notifications leading up to that. Other times it's like task-based notifications. So it's like, hey, draft is created. Hey, second milestone is completed. Third milestone is completed. And when those milestones are completed, then you send off the next notification for whatever your team has to do, right? So those are one of the two ways I see it kind of working for the majority of businesses. I could be wrong there because I haven't done every single business model out there. I've done a lot of 6, 7, and 8-figure businesses, and this is typically, they fall under one of those two categories here. So let's talk about project management here. Go high level. Up until now, we've done everything at Go High Level, right? But Go High Level is not the perfect solution for dealing with project management systems. So that is where we need to talk about make.com, because make.com can connect us into tens of thousands of other applications. And specifically what we want to connect into is ClickUp. You can use whatever you want. It can be ClickUp, it can be monday.com. It could be Asana, but these are all, I would say, probably the 3 most popular project management systems that I see on the marketplace today. You can also use Notion too. I guess that's a really popular one as well. Whatever floats your boat, they're a one-to-one substitute for each other, and they all essentially more or less do the exact same thing, right? So what we're going to do here is we are going to circle back into our deposit paid workflow here, okay? And we want to create a project management system for that client in ClickUp. So how we go about doing this is we're going to add something called a webhook. Now, a webhook is essentially more or less just a fancy way of sending data between applications, right? So we send data from Go High Level into our connector app, which is make.com, and make.com connects the data into ClickUp, right? But how we send data from Go High Level to make.com is through something called a webhook. So let's break this down so it's a bit more applicable. First things first, if you haven't done so already, you're going to need to sign up to make.com to make this work. If you're not interested in the project management side of things, you can just switch over to the next part or the next module in this video. So we're going to create a new scenario here, and this is going to be like, I don't know, test GHL project management, okay? And we're gonna choose webhook here. Sweet. And specifically, we're gonna choose webhook response, which means that we're gonna receive information from here. Oops, that is not correct at all. We're gonna delete that module, and we're gonna do webhook custom webhook, which just receives information. So we'll do test GHL. You can just name it whatever it is you want here. This doesn't matter. This is just for you to reference later on. And then it comes up with this URL here. So if I was to copy this, okay, paste that into a new tab. There's two parts to this. There's the unique identifier, which is unique to your account. And it's also unique to this particular workflow. So anytime you go to this website, it's going to start this particular workflow. So if we just run this, right, and I just go to this, right, it says accepted here. And this workflow has started, but there's no data that was added onto it, right? So now we need to add the data. And let's go ahead and do that. So in essence, we're going to copy this URL here, and we're just going to go into this deposit paid / customer workflow, and we're going to add in that URL. Practically speaking, what happens here is Go High Level will send you all the information it has on a client. So if Stacy pays, you have a client, her name is Stacy, she pays, you have all the information about her so far. Everything, all the information you have about Stacy, name, phone number, email, tags, service date, service, all of that kind of stuff, it's all going to be included in this webhook. It's all going to be sent to her, right? So we can test this out. Let's go ahead and let's receive the information in make.com. How we do this is on the sidebar, we go to contacts and Go High Level. We enter into the contact that we have created together. Okay, and I'm just going to click OK, and behind my face there's this massive, well, not so massive I guess, but this purple run once button, and that's going to turn the scenario into test mode in make.com. Now it's waiting to receive data. Any data that's sent to it, it will be received here, okay? And in Go High Level, we're going to add the dummy client into an automation here. So we're going to do add, and I'm going to do deposit paid and click add. Now it's going to start that workflow manually, right? So it started this workflow, it updated the contact, it sent the webhook, and now we've received that information in this particular webhook. We've received the service and the date and the price and the contact ID and all of the information alongside that person, right? Which is fantastic. So now we have that contact. All we have to do is use something like ClickUp. What we have to do is essentially create a project management system in ClickUp for that client, right? And this is where you'd host all the tasks and everything that you need to do. You can assign it to whatever team member it is that you wanted to assign the project to. So we're going to do ClickUp here, and there's a lot of different ways to set up boards in ClickUp. You can have like a folder for every client. I just like having the one list, and I dump all of my projects onto that list. That way I don't have to, if you have 500 clients, you don't have to look through 500 folders to find the right client. You just have to go find that, search that list for the client, if that makes sense, right? So for me, I just prefer having one list with all the information as opposed to one folder for every client. It's just a data architecture preference from my perspective. So because of that, I'm just going to model it after how I'd usually build this kind of stuff out. And we're just going to simply just create tasks. And how you'd go about doing this is creating a task for everything that needs to be done for that client. So for example, task number 1 could be schedule a phone call with the person. Task number 2 could be get a remaining balance payment from the person. Task number 3 is reach out to contractor and see if they have any questions. Number 4 is make sure that the onboarding form has been completed before the services are rendered. All of that kind of stuff, right? So you'll go in and you'll just connect an account in here. It's just you click save and you log into the ClickUp and you're pretty much good to go. And then you just choose the workspace and we're gonna simply add everything in here that we want to add. So I'm gonna go ahead and select Jono's tasks for where this gets created. And I'm gonna say, we're gonna do here. And we can just go ahead and drill down and keep adding tasks. So I have this space called Jono's tasks. Here's the folder and here's the list. And this is where all the tasks are going to be added. I'm going to say call the client, right? And it could be like, here's the person's phone number to call, right? And I'm going to assign it to myself. And maybe you have tags and ClickUp, you can assign to that. And the status is going to be to do, and the priority is going to be normal, let's say, and the due date is going to be, we're gonna have to customize this. And let's say that we wanted to call that client 2 weeks before the event, right? what we could do is we could have a time function here. Functions are just ways to manipulate data in make.com. So coming up to the calendar icon here, we have this function called add days, right? And it takes two parameters. It takes the date, and then it takes the amount of days you want to add or subtract from that date. So how we can schedule this call 2 weeks or the task 2 weeks before the actual service date is we add in the service date here. So we're looking at the service date, which is December 27th, 2024. Okay, and we're going to do minus 14. This is going to change, it's going to manipulate the date. It's going to remove 14 days. And now instead of it being 2024, December 27th, it's going to be December 13th, right? So that is the deadline for this task. And then you can add an estimated time in minutes, maybe 5, I don't know. World's your oyster. You get to decide on that, whatever floats your boat. And then you can just duplicate this over and over and over again for all the tasks that you would want to create. And if you wanted to circle back into the workflow, right? Maybe instead of having like time-based notifications being sent out, you have project-based notifications. First draft completed, milestone completed, showing the project to the client completed. You could instead, in make.com, you could have like another scenario. This whole thing's a scenario. Tesco high-level project management is a scenario. You could have a different one where you have watch tasks in here. And when that particular task with that particular name is completed, then it sends that data back into Go High Level. I'm not going to talk about that just because that's not how I do it. And I was just kind of showcasing one other way to do it, but essentially more or less that's exactly how you do it. And yeah. So, and also Go High Level has like a built-in functionality right in here. So if you wanted to add them back in, you could just do Go High Level lead connector and update a task or update a contact or whatnot. So more or less that's how you can do project management. And then assigning team members, I mean, we kind of already talked about that with assigning the customer sales rep when the deposit's been paid. So I think I'm just going to skip over this one. But the reason I added that in there is because I run a wedding business in Canada that actually happens to be the biggest one. And we have about 120 to 150 contractors that do all different types of services for us. And we just automate the process of assigning people so that we don't have to always, we don't have to always manually do that, because obviously when you're dealing with like 500, 600, 700 events, it becomes quite a burden to do that. So we just have a system that automatically does this, but I don't think that's necessarily applicable to most businesses. And for that reason, I'm going to skip over it. So we have completed everything up until the contract actually being completed. Now, at this point in time, we can just create the last couple workflows here. I'm going to skip over revisions because I also don't think this is super important, but these two are tied together, the contract completed and the reviews. So what we're going to do is we're going to have another workflow here at the end. And this workflow, we're going to start from scratch, is going to be contract complete. Okay. And how this starts is it's going to be a custom date. So in other words, what we want to do is we want to add a filter here. And when the service date, custom date field, and when the service date has passed, so when it is the service date, right? So if we service the client on, let's say, February 27th, when February 27th rolls around, then this workflow starts, right? And we're going to match on the year along with the day and the month. We'll save this, right? Just because if you don't click this off, in the year 2024, 2025, 2026, 2027, it's going to add the same person to the same workflow. So you just want to make sure that this is only starting at one time for one particular year. So we have started the trigger, right? Issue here is this is going to start for anyone that you have the service date for. You're getting the service date on the call, the sales call, but that doesn't mean the person's going with you. So the first thing we have to do is we have to have a conditional statement here, and we have to take a look to see if the contract is in fact won. So how we do that, practically speaking, is contact details. We're going to search for the tag here, and the tag has to include, I like calling it contract won, right? That's just the way I do it here. Contract won. Sweet. So there we go. We have this. And if they don't have that contract one, then they're automatically removed from this current workflow. But right now, we just need to circle back here because we never added the contract one on the deposit paid / customer workflow. So when somebody pays and signs the agreement and they become a customer from a lead, we also need to make sure to add that tag so that by the time the contract is won, this workflow can be successfully started and they can be routed down the path of actually doing something with them at this point in time. So all we have to do is circle back into that deposit paid workflow here, and we'll just add a contact tag. So tag, add contract one. There we go. Save action, save. Perfect. Okay, so with this, all we have to do is, I like to wait 2 days. So it's like I'm not messaging them on the morning of the services. I'll wait 2 days and I'll just send off an email, right? So email, and this is going to be just random stuff again. And I'm going to say, hey, thanks so much for working with us. Can you please give us feedback here? And this is going to be a link to a form for them to give you feedback. So I'm going to go ahead and save this, and we're going to move back here just to get a new window open here. We need to give them a place to give us feedback, right? Because we want to collect feedback. But let me take a step back here. So service date happens, okay, and we send them off an email saying, thanks for working with us. Can you give us feedback? And the issue is I don't want to send somebody to Google to give me a review right away, because if that person had a terrible experience with your service, which hopefully almost never happens, but if you're dealing with enough customers, it's inevitably going to happen at some point in time. That even the best providers in the world have bad ratings here and there. And you can't stop the fact that some customers are loony bins a lot of the time too. So just take that with a grain of salt too. I mean, it's just inevitable as well, right? So you don't want to always ask people to give you a review. What I like to do is I like to have a page where I say, hey, can you provide us feedback? And then I just ask them, like, out of 5, how likely would you be to recommend us to your friends and family? If it's a 5, if it's a 4, I ask them to leave me a review on other platforms that I'm looking to collect reviews on, right? So I need a form to send them to collect their feedback, and then only if it's good, then I ask them to leave a review on Google. So or whatever platform you're asking for a review on. So in order for us to do that, we need to have another form here, and this form is going to be feedback. So I'm going to add form, start from scratch, and this is going to be called feedback. Okay, and simply put, like, I don't really care about anything here except for the email field here, okay? And that's it. And all I want is a form here, or another question here, which is a radio select question. And it says, out of 5, how likely are you to refer us to your friends and family? And I'll just give them options 1 through 5. And 5. Okay, perfect. So we have this question filled out for us, right? And this will determine if that person later goes on to receive an email, ask them to leave us a review on our review platform of our choice. This is a required question. Now, just a couple things about this. If I preview this form, and I should have mentioned this with the onboarding form too, so it's one of the same, this and the onboarding form, and any form, quite frankly, that you send a client outside of the new lead form, this is going to apply to all of them. You do not want to include the email here, right? And the reason why is, let's say they send it to their business partner and their business partner enters in their email. That's going to create another client. It's not going to match it to the existing client. If the person has a typo, it's going to create a new client. It's not going to match it to the other client. You do not want to give them permission to edit their own email. So how we go about doing this is quite simply something called URL parameters. So URL parameters are providing additional context to a website page. And practically speaking, what URL parameters look like is, if I just open this up, question mark, key equals value. This is what it looks like, right? And you can have multiple keys equal multiple values. so on and so forth, as many as you would like, right? So we'll just come back and we'll add this in here. Now, the thing is you can, I'm just going to delete one of these, but you can essentially have email equals test@gmail.com. And you're providing additional context to this form. What that looks like is, because we added in email equals test@gmail.com, we're actually populating automatically this email field. So now all of a sudden, email equals test@gmail.com, right? And you could also populate this out of 5, how likely would you be to refer us to your friends and family? Just as an example, I wouldn't do this, but you could be like, this equals 5. And all of a sudden, that's going to be automatically populated too. So all of these fields, they have this query key here that you can change. And you just need to pass that in as the URL key and then assign a value to it. And then it will add that in. And the reason why I'm saying this is because what you really want to do is provide the person's email, okay? And you want to change this, to a hidden field. So instead of them being able to see it like this and changing it, you enter in the email at the top, and then you hide the field so they can't change it, right? And then when they go to submit the form, then you know who to assign that form submission to, so you know the exact client, and that's how you can always maintain forms to the right person so that you can track which person it is at their stage through the customer journey. Now, that looks good to me. Let's go ahead and actually roll this form out. So how you'd want to do this is in this email from the contract complete. So contracts is complete. You wait 2 days, as long as they went with you, they signed and they paid, then you send them off an email thanking them for their time and you ask them for feedback. Then you provide the link for them to fill out that form on. But obviously you don't want to hard code the exact email that they have, because you can only do that for one client at a time. So what you do is you delete that and you have the key value pairs, which is $equals, email equals, and then you go to custom values, you go to contact and email. And now with this link, it doesn't matter who you send it to, it's always going to rotate the email out to be the exact client's email. And this is how you can always 100% of the time pair that form submission back to the exact client that you sent the email to, right? Okay, perfect. So now we have contract complete, email sent off with form asking them to submit information on how good their experience was. And you also want to do this with the onboarding form as well. Now, on to the last step here, which is going to be another email here. And this is going to be review, right? And the trigger here is going to be the form submission, right? So form submission is that review form that we just created, so feedback, and then we can filter people out. So if somebody was like up in arms and they're like super upset with your services, obviously you don't want to ask them for a review. Hey, I know you had a really, really terrible experience with us, but do you mind just quickly leaving us a 5-star review on Google or whatever? That wouldn't go over too well. So we'll do like 4 to 5 star rating here. And the condition is going to be that the out of 5, right? It's going to be either is a 4 or, so we're going to change this from and to or, so there's 2 conditions here. The out of 5, once again, we're going to find this out of 5. This is going to be a 5, right? Sweet. So even if it's a 4 or a 5. Now, a lot of you guys out there might be like, well, why would you include a 4 in there? Like, don't you just want perfect reviews? And I can confidently say, no, I don't want just perfect reviews. I think 4-star reviews are some of the best reviews, because I think a lot of people look at reviews and they're like, okay, BS, 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 friend wrote that, family wrote that, friend wrote that, family wrote that, and they look for the real genuine reviews. If you don't have 4-star reviews, then it's going to look like it's BS, in my opinion. That's how I see it. It's easy to get reviews nowadays online. I know Google's cracking down on it heavily, but it's still quite easy on other platforms. So for that reason, I like to include 4-star reviews, because people, when they read it, they tend to associate that with a real, genuine review. And if you have a mixed bag of 4 and 5-star reviews, then it just seems more genuine as opposed to only 5-star reviews. So we can send off an email being like, I don't know, I'm just gonna just type out, hey, thanks so much for leaving us a, and we can actually find that variable, like this out of 5, how likely would you be to give us a rating? And we'll do like 5. So this would practically look like 4-star, or it would look like 5-star when this is actually filled in with the field that they submitted on this question right here. So we're going to say, hey, thanks so much for the 5-star rating. Would you have 2 seconds to leave us a review on this platform? And then link to platform here. Okay, save, and we're good to go. So that is how you can do reviews. And then lastly speaking, I mean, yeah, you can just wait like, I don't know, 365 or 63 days, let's just say. Most people end up leaving that review on the, actually, you know what? I'm just going to keep it like that, save this, and we're going to do referrals. This will be the last official workflow that we're doing. So we're going to start from scratch here, and we're going to do the last stage here, which is like referrals, like turning clients that had a good experience with your customer or with your business into recurring customers and brand ambassadors for you. So we'll do referrals here, and we're going to make sure that the trigger here is the service date. So custom date reminder. And this is going to, once again, have a match in the exact date. It's going to be a custom date field, service date, and we're going to wait 365 days. So exactly 1 year after the initial service date, you can, you know, work around with the numbers and play it by ear, whatever you want. You can do seasonal campaigns, Christmas, you know, New Year, Black Friday, Thanksgiving, that kind of stuff. You could also do like birthday. If you have the birthday, you can do 1 year anniversaries. In this example, it's a 1 year anniversary. And we're going to do an if or else statement here. And the first thing is they have to have a 4 to 5 star rating, right? So as long as contact details, let's do out of 5, is a 4, right? And the other one is out, oops, we got to go into contact details here, out of 5. It's either a 4 or 5 star rating. Then we can just say, you know, so we wait a year as long as they have that rating, which means they were a client and they gave us a review. Then we can send them an email just being like, hey, can you give us a review? So a at gmail.com, whatever, subject line A. Hey, person's full name or first name. Can't believe it's been a year since we worked together. Time flies. Are you interested in getting your hedges trimmed? I don't know, whatever. And then you could do like a referral campaign to bring in additional clients, maybe their friends or family members and all that kind of stuff. So in a nutshell, I mean, that's really it. I mean, bare bones, of course, but I just gave you the logic there to really go through and automate more or less your entire business. If you're a service-based business, this is, you know, that alone is going to save you probably like an hour every single client and increase the amount of revenue that you generate. But more than just that, right? You can add on to that, perfect it, all of that kind of stuff, make it as good as it can possibly be, and it's going to save you even more time. But that's essentially how you can go through every single life cycle stage of a business and just automate the hell out of it, right? Get the best freaking results possible. Best part is your competitors won't even be able to compete with you. I mean, just imagine it. If you and I are competing and I have a system like this that works around the clock, 24/7, always does the tasks immediately that need to be done, I A/B test everything, I get the best results, and I deliver that to the clients, and then you have to do that manually. You have to send off emails at 12, you're missing things all the time. You're not going to be able to compete. And then if I can replace like the equivalent to 15 people full time with automation, then that's even another edge that most people can't get. And keep in mind, most service-based businesses, they just don't have the cash flow to hire 15 extra people, right? So something like this is just freeing up so much time and going above and beyond what they'd have the capacity to do in the first place. I think that this is the differentiating factor between people having a lot of success and dominating and crushing in their industries and not. Obviously, you need to be good at sales and marketing, everything else, but if somebody else is also good at sales, marketing, and they have this, then I'd be pretty scared personally. So that in a nutshell is essentially everything you need to automate your business. The blueprints for this are all going to be down below in the description And those are all going to be free, by the way. And then, of course, if you guys do want to take this to the next level and you want to be serious about go high level on automation, all that kind of stuff, like I would just sign up for my blueprints here, because it costs you $0 more, right? You get everything that I just showed you, and it's going to be 10 times more than everything I showed you. Once again, I did spend like the equivalent of, I don't know, $2 million at least on perfecting this. Made a lot of mistakes along the way. And yeah, instead of you guys going through this and having to perfect it over the next weeks and months, you can just get you can get it out of the box. That's pretty much good to go. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Really hope you enjoyed this. You found value in it. If you did, please leave a comment down below just saying thanks if you found this useful, because it really helps me by letting me know if I'm doing a good job or not and serving you guys the right content to help you guys out. And if you're new to the channel, make sure to subscribe down below as well, because I'll be releasing content just like this all the time. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you, and bye-bye.